Welcome to Flying High, Drone Racing and VR Combined. We started this back in the spring of 2019 when a math teacher donated a couple of drones. And as a librarian, our library is across the hall from our art teacher, and we're always excited about new toys and new tech and new things to do and learn with our students. So I was looking at a way to make it academically acceptable and brought in the FAA and how students would go about getting licensed in the future, since there were drone jobs beginning to pop up pretty much everywhere. And safety was a key factor, especially here in the school and working with young adults. But it also brought real-world technology into the hands of our students, and that is a wonderful thing.
Okay, so here's the deal. Wait, no, stay behind me.
Oh, okay.
So now you're going to take off from there and land on the blue chair. Good luck.
Oh, the blue way over there?
Uh-huh.
Oh my gosh.
It's the same elements you've been doing in other stuff. Nice! Good job! You
Another reason is that the FAA safety site is actually pretty doable. It has small videos in each section. It does overviews and summaries, and it has a multiple choice test at the end that is doable for our students. And I think anyone can do it with enough application. So in this presentation, I've broken it into 3 parts and made little video segments explaining specific pieces and elements of each of the sections: writing the grant, following up on the grant, and reporting on the grant. So the first grant we actually applied for in the spring of 2019 at the end of school. It was the Partners in Education grant here at Round Rock ISD, and I was serving the needs of our school, a DAEP, and making sure that when I read through the grant and started gathering information for it, that I kept in mind the committee that would read the grant. So they would have a whole set of stakeholders that was different from my stakeholders, and both needed to be served well for the grant to be approved. Welcome to the first part of the grant process that started over 1 year and 4 months ago. So be ready for the long haul. This is the PI grant, the Round Rock ISD Partners in Education Foundation grant application. I am simply going to click through the grant application quickly so you see the number of pages that were on the form I had to fill out. This was me filling them out, a lot of prep work before that. And then I'll go back and kind of show you what I did for that. Whoops, that was a little too fast. Okay, so here's the grant application. They're asking, how are your students impacted? You're looking for how are you going to show the students gained something from the grant items. What is the impact of your grant and how does that work? So they also want to know that you have the approval of the campus folks involved. And here I'm attaching exactly what would be purchased. The small drone, the larger drones, different computer elements. So yeah, I don't know if you really need to see all of this, the games and computers. Now, going back to the beginning of this document, I'm showing you what I sent to all of the teachers and people who would be involved on my campus. So if I named them in the grant application, oh, our math teacher is going to help. Oh, our art teacher and I are collaborating to do this as a class that's kind of off the record. So it counts as a student's art class here. And gives them art credit because as they're flying the drones, they'll be creating and sculpting in medium on the virtual reality headset. So yeah, and again, at the beginning, I talked about ADD and creative fun and how I'm always trying to get technology into the hands of students. So it went from students seeing us fly a couple of drones that were donated by our math teacher to, oh, okay, let's have them fly drones. Oh, okay, let's look at the FAA safety site and see what they have to say. And I've already talked about how I loved that site, or I will talk about it depending on how I stitch these movie segments together. And then, oh, well, what if they got into this virtual reality headset and started sculpting the wings for it or modifying the vehicles or making propellers or, yeah. So to me, getting all of that into their hands and having them work on that is a big plus. So that's what started this drone on unbelievably awesome vehicles, or, you know, unmanned aerial vehicles, which is what they're really called. So I sent out a summary, which is awesome. In the summary, I included the wording of the key elements. Here's the project impact, how we're going to accomplish it, 28 words. This one just sums everything up. Improved level of engagement in math, science, and art. Students are immersed in real-world application of physics for a purpose and are encouraged to stay in school. You know, we give them fun toys, they might show up tomorrow. There's the bottom line. So this is kind of a quick overview of what started the whole thing with the PI grant. So reading the PI grant is important and getting a sense of the grant as a whole. I already talked about the stakeholders. Okay, so now we're going to talk specifically about parts of the PI grant that you really need to know. And if you have grants in the future that just ask you this one question or one piece of the question, describe the impact this project will have now and in the future, you need to change that into questions to really get the answer spot on to what the grant committee is looking for. So in this, it's important that you pay attention to what they're asking. Describe the impact. Okay, what about the impact now and in the future? And so these key elements of what the PI grant folks were looking for are explained a little better in the questions they gave you after. Not all grants are that nice. So what do you hope they, students or teachers, will accomplish? They want to know what's going to happen, gains that will happen. Example, even better. I loved that they were so explicit. Increase passing rates on tests. And one of the things that I don't know if I did in this PI grant, I'm pretty sure I didn't because it was after we started really getting students going through the process that we saw improvement, but learning that they can take online tests and multiple question tests and improve their confidence in taking tests makes a big difference in how well they do. The evaluators of the grant are looking for measurement tools that you're going to use to prove the impact of your grant. Okay, so now I know I need to give them specific. It's all in the details. So when you see a grant layout, go through and feel free to highlight, describe the impact now, in the future. And it will really help you focus in on what's important to the people who will be reading and deciding whether or not you get your grant. So we've gone through a close reading of the grant, and now we're looking at responding to it. And it's critical that you answer their questions with as much detail as you can. Okay, so we are going to spend one more moment on the PI grant. And you have here the question that I'm about to answer, the way that they stated it in questions, and the keywords highlighted. So let's highlight some of the keywords in the answer. I made sure that I had frequency in there because now and in the future shows me they're interested. I answered a specific number of students, and then again, frequency over the course of a year, which would include the future. So I'm answering it. 60 students would be impacted. In addition, they've asked about teachers too. So I'm also talking about here the impact on students and teachers on the campus is that they're going to get excited about it, encouraged to get into STEAM, STEM, any of the hot buzzwords. I think STEAM is going away and STEM is getting bigger, but they might both be going out of practice. The idea is not, however, especially with technology grants. So in your answers, be sure that you are including the words that they have asked for, the words they've used in their grant application form, and answer the question with specific details. Numbers are good. So in responding, just to sum up, answer the questions, use the language they used, and add any current educational buzzwords that apply. And here we are at the end of the grant structure and putting together the grant, and it took some time. And before I sent it off, I wanted to make sure that everyone who would be named in the grant or involved in helping us implement the grant should we get it, knew that we were talking about them, knew that we had named them as a sponsor or a co-collaborator or someone who may or may not help. And that's important because you don't want to get a grant and have someone startled that you've asked them to do something in it. So not only do you want to send a note out and make sure everyone's on board, you want to make sure you wrote it well. And so if you're not an English major, get one on your team. Kind of critical. And not actually successful. But, hey, we tried. It was worth it, worth the effort, most definitely. So the PI grant was shot down. And in the email that notified us of that over the summer, I got a note from our principal who said that, hey, you didn't get your grant, but they thought you would have an excellent chance at getting the innovative grants. And you've done all the work already, or they thought so. There's more work involved in any grant, even if it's a lot of a similar nature, let's say. So I went ahead and applied for that. So the innovative grant was bigger, better, not faster. but more. So instead of 5,000 as a cap, it had 10,000. I'd already gathered all the material and kind of put some wording together and thought about it and put some classwork together to support the academic side. They always want to, teach them things and show that. So that was all very good, but now I needed to write another grant. Okay, so you now know that we were shot down for the PI grant, but at the same time, when we got the notification of that, we were offered the innovative grant. They thought it would be a much better fit. The plus side is that this was a larger grant and could meet our needs more fully because they would give us more money. So it took a lot more effort. However, we are going into round 2 on the Innovative Schools Grant. So I include this. I'm not going to go into tons of detail reading through it. It would bore me to tears, and I am sure it would bore you even more. But here is the Tier 1 Seed Grant Cycle 4. So I have no idea what that meant then or now, but I filled it out. The proposed project title: Drone On, Designing, Deploying, and Delivering. And you notice instead of $5,000, we're now asking for 10. Why not? All they can say is no. So here are the 2 breakouts of the Tier 4 seed application. The first one wants an overview with 3 specific goals. And in each of the goals, they have, what are you doing specifically? What are you going to do to measure whether it is effective? Again, using their verbiage. What is achievable? How is it relevant to the district? And how long is it going to take? So each of the 3 goals in this grant had 5 or 6 here different sections that you had to address specifically. So again, using their words, knowing your audience, making sure that you're remembering all the grant committee members who are reading this are thinking about not only the students in your class, but how is this going to affect kind of all aspects of the community they serve. So I keep that at the forefront and answer it. Goal 2 was the FAA remote pilot section. Students will take the online course from the FAA safety. We'll know if they complete the course because they'll turn in the certificate that says they passed. One thing I want to point out about relevancy here is that no matter what I worded at the top of this section, the bottom of this section had the same exact wording. In the district's goals, we met numbers 2, 5, and 6 of the district goal, strategic plan goals. All 3 of those goals were student-centered, and they were the only student-centered goals in the district strategic plan. The rest of them covered other stakeholders and community members and teachers and people also involved in the educational community. So rather than going through all these goals, I'm going to move right to the actual proposal, which is part 2 in the application, but was the first part I did when we were putting this together. So you don't have to do things in order, but you need to submit them in the order they ask. And then at the end, describe what's already in place, describe how you will sustain it, and describe how you will evaluate. And again, the more specific you are in this, the better. They want details because they're going to take it to someone, or they're going to determine whether or not you get $10,000 based on how much you can prove to them that there was significant gain in the education of the students enrolled here at our school, the Opportunity Center. So class survey, teacher feedback on behavior, number of students able to complete the course. And assurances, I've removed the link because you don't need to go to our budget accounting software program. But otherwise, you have everything that I attached. I will kind of quickly scroll through that just so you can see. Here's the syllabus. You'll be getting a copy of this. You can read it at your leisure. 4 major goals for students to read and parents. The commitment and resolution, we modified this. And once a student tried to hit another student with a drone, we kind of changed some requirements and made sure that didn't happen, and had immediate repercussions, like expulsion from the program and going back to art. And here is the Google class. Let me see if I can downsize this a little so you can see the whole thing. Here is week 1. I got rid of more than half of the words on this by the time we were running the 3rd or 4th student through it. And I'll be showing you that later in the presentation itself. But the rest of this are the weeks of Google and the strategic plan goals of our district. And here we are with the pieces that I copied. So I just want to sum up this grant section, writing the grant, because we're done with that. And that's a good thing, but I hope you understood the key elements of this, the reading, understanding, responding, a little summary below. Know your stakeholders, know the people you're going to be working with during the grant, and get an English teacher or a great writer, whatever they're teaching. We got the grant. So we were notified, I'm trying to remember when, and the date isn't here, so that doesn't help me. But we were pretty darn excited about it when it happened, and still are. And show you what this section is going to be about. It's the follow-up, follow-through. Organization, critical. Patience, oh yes, critical. And perseverance, as always. You will get through this. And welcome to the follow-up and follow-through section of this program about grant writings and how to get them, how to make sure you do all the things they say you should, and how to wrap them up. So wrapping them up would be nice, but we are a year and a half basically into this, and we're not wrapping it up yet. As a matter of fact, we just received some of the final pieces of the order. So patience and perseverance are your friends. I just want to quickly show you some of the 40 plus emails over the last year and a half, starting back in July of 2019 and going to the present. Again, patience and perseverance. We're still dealing with some of it. There are a few dollars left in the grant, and I've ordered a couple more drones. So I've just submitted all of that today, which is nice because we'll get a couple more drones. Can't beat it, but again, patience and perseverance. You need to be really organized. If you'll notice, back in 2019, 2020, at the top of this screen, I created a drones and the cloud folder. And in it, I started putting all the stuff I was looking at, how to clean the Oculus Rift, how to put together the documents and quizzes, how to track what students had completed in completed items, and of course, all of the grant paperwork, which, hey, we're learning. So while this was my second year last year at this district, I was becoming well-versed in accounting and budget and who to contact for follow-up. And I just have to say, everyone who was involved with this, the grant people, thank you for being so patient. And it worked. We're almost there. This is the class that you've seen already, so I'll just close that out. So we went to buy items and find a space and do all that fun stuff, but we got stalled for a couple of reasons. One of them was getting a Dell machine developed to meet our needs, and our tech people were fantastic with that. It took a couple of months to realize that for them to do due diligence and make sure that there wasn't a product already available on on a campus in our district that met the requirements for the Oculus Rift, and there wasn't. So they were really good about contacting Dell and working with them, and the requirements I had sent to develop computers that were robust enough to handle the virtual reality headsets. And when we got the test one in, it was fantastic. It actually exceeded our expectations. So even though it was stalled for that, and then COVID in the spring of 2020, when we came back to school in January after winter break, we had 2 months. We went on spring break and never came back. We went virtual, actually, so all of our attention and focus was on creating the virtual platform so learning could continue, and it did. But for the grant, suddenly we were not able to purchase the things we needed. Everything that people could use in-house to play, to do different things, was sold out and 3 times higher cost than it was originally. So we couldn't purchase the headsets because they'd gone from $399 and $499 to $1,000 and not available through the manufacturer, but rather some third-party seller. And anyway, so yes, we did not purchase anything then, but now we have. Even though we hadn't purchased stuff, we were still responsible and needed to stay in contact with our grant people to make sure that we were trying to implement as much as we could without the drones. We did have the computers in, so we started working students through some of the VR projects that we had looked forward to doing in the drone program. And we had to give kind of a mid-year, hey, how's it going? So what we had were lots of pictures of students working with the donated drones before they all kind of no longer worked, which after use, a lot of use happens. So we had students who were taking the FAA online course and working with Medium and some of the sculpting programs in the VR and fixing the drones. So when they asked for a how's it going, even though we hadn't really ordered the bulk of the equipment and the drone part, we could give them some information and specifics and happy smiley faces. So here were the original drones. I think you saw some of them early on. They were no longer available or for sale when we went to make the order. So we got these instead. The good thing about this is that the Snaptane is a much better beginner drone. And the struggling thing with this is that the Hubsan is a much higher end machine than the mid-range one we had in the first order. So it is much more powerful and much more capable of teaching our students how to fly with the first person view, but also a little more dangerous. So we're working on getting that fixed. Silver lining is that in doing all this research and having a drone here and there that we would try and purchase out of our own budget and do things with, we realized we needed a lot of batteries. I mean, there's just batteries everywhere because you need the one in the machine and a couple charging so that during the course of a day, everyone who wants to fly has some flight time. It's crazy. And most of them go into a USB hub, so we needed those. And the machines came in once we had run test on the machine that Dell and our tech people created for us. It, like I said before, was fantastic. And we had one of them set up with the Rift headset, but we still hadn't ordered the other headsets because they weren't back into reality pricing mode yet with the extended COVID happening. So in March of 2021, and it's still March of 2021, we finally got everything that we needed. The drones came in, the Rift came in, we changed one of the Rifts to a Quest because we were looking to have a bit more mobility and trying to set up a ring around a student so they'd have more space to move while they were sculpting. I didn't realize sculpting took so much arm flailing, but now I do. I love learning. And learning how to organize the new drones, because one of them is much smaller than the squares we had provisioned, and one of them is about 2 inches larger than the squares we had provisioned. So we're still going to look at how to set that up and organize it as soon as I'm done with creating this presentation. So in the follow-up and follow-through, you need to organize and have patience and persevere. And I think that's good for everything, so it makes sense. Let's move on to the school part. Schoology, medium, and flight. Here's just some of the FAA items that our students get to review when they join the course. And here's a message that I received back from the FAA saying, yeah, you don't need to be certified to teach this. You can share stuff with students, and since you're not flying out in the open, we're okay with it. This is kind of a quick look at how I pared the wording down. So the left side is the first round, the right side is the next round, and it's even better in Schoology. You can see I like embedding screenshots and movies. And here's what the current class looks like. This is in Schoology, and it's actually saved to the public resources so that anyone using Schoology can get to it. I've also created a PDF that prints all of the weeks in Schoology, including the actual descriptions in each of the sections for each week. And you'll have access to that in the handouts. This is our art teacher, Murphy, making a video to sell it. Student using Medium, passing the FAA course. This was our first student to do it. He was also a student who never attended and came to all classes but one the whole time he was here, got his hours done quickly. Student working with Medium. Students working on repairing drone. the way it looks now. Student working to get out of the escape room app.
Do it again.
It's got like a feedback sort.
Oh, I thought you were doing that on purpose. It's a feedback loop. Is that the stuck switch?
I don't know if it's just inherent because of the drone's wheel bouncing off the ground like this, or if it's like the drone doing it, or maybe I don't know what it is. It's something.
Now, have you done it and then driven it? Does it work well on the wheels? Do you get some speed up?
Left it on wheels.
How not to leave your workspace.
I will be running through a short tutorial on how to best use this drone, and this tutorial will apply to most drones in the market. First, find the power button, both on the drone and on the controller, and then locate the throttle. Move the throttle up and down like this to pair the drone with the controller.
And a number of them have passed the FAA certificate from the safety site. And here is our contact info. I'll see you in the chat room.